For years, I've been urging you to support the Royal Melbourne Hospital Lottery, and this year there's even more reason. You could win the biggest prize they have ever offered. You could win the dream. You could live mortgage-free in East Brighton with a $5 million grand prize. Tickets are available now, so go to rmhhomelottery.com.au and help one of our biggest hospitals do an even better job. Permit 10522/22. Very serious matter first. I was saying earlier, we haven't really achieved enough or anything with domestic violence. You go back to Luke Batty, killed by his dad 6 years ago. We said that was going to change everything. We would not let it happen again. There was a Royal Commission into Family Violence. It released 227 recommendations. The government says it's implemented 143 of them. But last week, up in Queensland, we had a man incinerate his family and then kill himself. And the argument around Bettina Arndt's a side issue to this. It's awful. In the studio are two men who know this better than most. They're founders of a thing called Protective Group, a security company that specialises in domestic violence. Stephen Wilson, Stephen Schultz, good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Morning, Neil. Thank you.
Stephen Schultz, you're both former detectives, eh?
Yes, we are. We are. Victoria Police, yep.
Yep. Okay. How long have you been working this security protective group?
The focus on domestic abuse in our working relationship is about 10 years old now.
Growth business?
Yeah, unfortunately it is, yeah.
What way? What's happening?
Well, we only have to look at the events in Queensland to see what the final result is, what can be the final result. What is happening, and we've seen this particularly in the last few years, is organisations, police, courts, domestic violence services, everybody involved in this they're open to a different form of response. It's coordinating it and dealing with the various people who are fragmented, funding and all that sort of stuff. So, we work nationally. We're under a number of programs, a number of different funding streams, with the Salvation Army Safer in the Home, for example, nationally. Some PSI, which is personal safety initiatives across Victoria. So they're early intervention, thinking outside the square. Let's focus on perpetrator behaviour.
So, Stephen Wilson, what happens? Somebody, usually a woman, I assume, feels under threat from an ex-partner, and they come to you. Will they go to the police first, I assume?
I would say it's more that we fill the gap between the time of the arrest, when he's put in a remand, and there's an intervention order taken out, and we receive a referral across Australia from the police in Queensland, magistrates, legal services, family law firms will send a referral into us directly.
So what do? You'll go and visit the woman, obviously, and what happens from there?
Yeah, correct. We go and visit the woman. We look at doing a comprehensive property audit, a risk assessment. We take into account the perpetrator behaviour. We look at strategies we can put into place to keep her safe and the kids safe, so maybe cameras or alarms, duress alarms. We debug phones. We search for trackers. We disrupt technology abuse because we're finding probably 8 or 9 out of 10 women are suffering technology abuse.
What do you mean by technology abuse?
It can be from simple stalking on social media, poor text messages, trackers in cars, listening devices in homes, spyware on phones.
Goodness me. And then what happens? You've got a situation, and I want to ask about OVOs in particular, or domestic violence orders. And Stephen Schultz, I ask you this: do they work? I made the point earlier that I once was being stalked and threatened by somebody, and the police said, "Oh, an OVO will only make him angrier. Don't bother." I mean, what's the point in something that says you can't go within 10 metres or 100 metres of this person if you're intending to hurt them or kill them because you don't care about the OVO?
What you're saying is absolutely correct. However, the intention of the AVO, IVO, DVO, depending which state we're in, is fantastic. If used by every party correctly, they're a very, very strong piece. That's a very strong piece of paper. Extremely secure piece of paper. So that starts with the women being empowered enough to actually report the breaches, because it's always, well, why didn't she report it? Why didn't she do this? Why did she do that? Well, hang on, why did he do this? Why did he do that? Why is he threatening, abusing children, etc.? Why is he doing it? So it's then to the police. What response to the police do?
So but we had a few cases of this too, where there's been some sort of order against a man approaching his partner, and he does.
Yep.
And I'm thinking one down in the west, and he does, and there are several reports to police, and not enough is done, and the next thing she's dead. I mean,
exactly, and and I don't mean to be disrespectful. That's really simplifying, because the police are acting on information at the time. This man,
so the police will take it seriously.
This man may be a barrister himself. He may be a surgeon. He may be someone of education who can pull the wool over everybody's eyes, and appear to be and throw shade onto the woman. So the police are saying, "Oh, this one's in the middle," or everybody's in the middle. When in fact he's deceiving everybody. He's morbid jealousy. He's narcissistic. He's a psychopath.
Have you dealt with people in those sort of professions?
Daily.
Really?
We deal with perpetrators who do this daily. If I can't have them, no one can.
No, but I mean in those sort of professions.
Perpetrators?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've had members of parliament. We've had surgeons. We've had QCs. We've had media people, school teachers. Police. We've had unemployed ice addicts. So it doesn't discriminate. But they don't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate. Sports people, you would be absolutely horrified. The men in this community in Victoria, and let alone Australia, who are perpetrators of serious family violence with the potential to kill women and children. The same indicators, the same incidents, the same predictors, the same high-risk predictors of domestic abuse.
Well, Stephen Wilson, has it got worse? Have you got more cases than you used to have?
Yes.
Significantly more?
Yeah, significantly more. Significantly more.
Why? I mean, we've had all this attention. It goes back to Rosie Batty, and before that there were other cases. We've had royal commissions, and it's still happening. What's not happening? It's getting worse.
I often look. Firstly, I can't make excuses for our gender, but it is mainly men that are perpetrators. In our cases, could be through the funding for our programs of funding women and children. But this is a problem that's been around since man was created. And it's not going to change overnight. This is going to take generational change.
Does it usually involve alcohol? Well, I mean, the way the other Stephen described it, there's something else going there, narcissistic, bitterness, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump in. I just think, yes, alcohol, mental health, exacerbate a man's behaviour, definitely. Is it the cause of it? Is it? No. But I'll just go back to ice. Methamphetamine. Yeah. Is that the cause of domestic abuse? In a lot of cases we're dealing with, particularly in elder abuse, that's teenage, early 20s sons abusing their mothers. Is ice the cause of the abuse? Yes. That's what we're seeing.
So that happens, you'll be called in for a mother to protect herself from a son?
Absolutely.
On a weekly basis. We receive between probably 20 and 120 odd referrals a week, and quite a few of them now we're noticing a lot of elder abuse and getting called to homes where the kids are still in the house and mum's not coping. The whole thing is, you asked that question before, is it on the increase? My word. Tech abuse mainly, yes. But I put it all down to, it appears it's a lack of empathy. We're dealing with people that have no empathy. And we're dealing with emotions, I suppose, so we're dealing with a lack of empathy.
Lack of empathy.
Yeah.
That is. And do you have cases of women being threatened by men? Men being threatened by women, I mean.
I think, looking back over the last decade, I think probably only 3 or 4 men have ever been referred to us. Again, I think the funding doesn't cover men who are victims. It's mainly funding for women. But no, family law firms send them in for men as well, yeah.
Stephen, do you see any answers here?
The answers? Gee whiz, if we had that. The answers is we remove people from the threat. So, yes, okay, we have identified that a woman is at extreme high risk of being killed and seriously injured with her children. Where do we put them so we can get this perpetrator under control? Do we put her in a hotel in the western suburbs that everybody knows where domestic abuse victims go, where the perpetrator can find her within 10 minutes? Is that the answer? Do we put them in there with her children, her twin 21-year-old female with twin 10-month-olds in a motel alone? That's not the answer. So we need supervised, safe places women to go to until the police and everybody else involved can get their hands on the perpetrator and deal with him. I think also touchy-feely men's behaviour change programs, and I don't mean to disrespect them, but I think we need to escalate the response in relation to that. I think we need psychiatrists involved in that, people who are mental health professionals to deal with these men in the first instance, to triage where these fellas are going to go.
Sue has a question for you. Yes, Sue, go ahead.
You may not be the right people to ask this question. However, is there a way of flagging a dangerous person without taking out an IVO, in that sometimes an IVO actually puts the person at risk?
So you want to warn that you've got a dangerous person causing trouble without taking out an order? Yeah? Yes, Stephen?
Yes, because someone close to me has just escaped, but I am seriously concerned for the next woman because all the precursors are there.
Was the person convicted of anything?
No, it's just one person's escaped. We think others probably have also, but I'm really fearful for the next person.
Okay. Stephen?
Yeah, great question, and it's one we get asked a lot too. Yes, if you're looking at these behaviours or indicators, and that you think a woman is likely to, or you think somebody else is likely to be injured or killed, it's certainly worth flagging with the police. If you're not sure, speak to a family violence service, and heed their advice, because they will connect you with the appropriate resources.
We will take a break, come back with more from Stephen Wilson, Stephen Schultz Protective Group, including a few callers and questions. I tell you what, if I wasn't convinced by you that it was a huge problem, since you've started talking, we've just had every line full. That's sad.
Yeah.
It is sad. Stephen Wilson, Stephen Schultz from Protective Group, which is really the sharp end of trying to prevent domestic violence. Stephen Wilson, you were telling me about a case in the southern suburbs, which is illustrative. What happened?
It was a case where I received a job to go down and do an assessment on the property. When I was there, I was, again, not asking the victim too many questions, but we assume that everywhere we go is a crime scene, so we're looking for an investigator's lens. So during the conversation, I'd said to her, how does the perpetrator get in? She said, well, he comes
he's getting into this, ex-partner.
Getting in the ex-partner's property. And I said, well, how does he get in? Do you have any idea? She said, well, he comes through the manhole. I said, oh, okay, so we need to look at the lock in the manhole. And I said, well, how do you know he comes through the manhole? She said, he comes in through the night, through the manhole, he videos me in bed, and then he gaslights me the next day or two and says, oh, I still see you wearing those pyjamas I bought you for anniversary. And he disappears out the manhole again.
And is this bloke a crook?
No. Well, he is because he's doing something wrong. Yeah,
but
he's doing something wrong.
He's not a criminal history.
No, he has none. And she said to me he wasn't even the sort of bloke to get a parking ticket, but he's prepared to breach an intervention order, and he's prepared to go back to jail for 2 or 3 months, and he comes out, he does exactly the same thing again.
Well, with Stephen Schultz, that's part of the frustration. And putting tracking devices on cars, they get that sophisticated.
Absolutely. Well, it actually isn't sophisticated. They can buy them online. Yeah. Get a magnet, stick it in there, get an app, get your app going, and as long as the battery lasts in it, or some of them hardwire them in. We've found, one of our technicians at work who is a genius at finding stuff. He's found hardwired stuff all over the country.
Hello, Steve. Go ahead.
How you going, Neil? I'm 61-year-old now. I watched my mother back in the late 60s get bashed by her first husband. First time he started bashing, she was pregnant with me. Alcohol fueled. The second husband, the same. As far as I'm concerned, marriage should be outlawed, because a lot of the men in them days, in the 60s, the 70s and 80s, seem to think that when they get married, I've got four girls myself, but they seem to think that when they get married, that a wife becomes a possession and own them. And it's not, it's just the way things are, and it's just an old style of relationship.
Well, I don't think it's a case against marriage, it's a case for decent marriage. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Thank you very much for calling. Stephen Wilson, what's the point then? I mean, in your case in the southern suburbs, an example. Bloke hasn't got a record. There's an AVO against him. He breaches that by sneaking in through the house in the middle of the night. He goes to jail. He does it again. I mean, what's the point in the AVO?
Oh,
Takes him out of the way for a few months.
I understand that, and I think back to when I first graduated as a young cop. You're looking back in 1979, 1980, and I remember my first police station was at Sunshine, and my first domestic violence I attended to was I was probably only just turned 18. I think a lot's changed since then. We didn't have intervention orders back then. You didn't have anything to sort of keep him removed. I think it has made a difference, but as to their effectiveness, well, again on that lady down in the southern suburbs, a drone in Sydney. A fellow was flying a drone he bought off the internet for $150, flying over the top of her skylight, filming her and taking pictures from a drone that he was putting straight on social media.
Hello, Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, morning, Neil. I was in a relationship some years ago with a female who used to physically, verbally, mentally abuse me, and in the end, when I was attacked by her, I went to the police and they suggested I get an AVO. So I applied for one. Took a week to get into court, and when I got into court, the magistrate basically threw mine out, awarded one to her, and from then on my life was hell. Eventually she was found in contempt of court, but she went court shopping, she went police station shopping to get me harassed and whatever. I mean, in the end, it cost me a lot of money, but in the end she was found to be in the wrong and moved on. But it's not a one-way street, the system's screwed.
Well, yeah, and I think the important point that was made earlier is there are male victims as well, but nowhere near as many. Okay, we have these horrific cases like what happened in Brisbane, and we all say, no, this can't happen again. There's a political fight about who's responsible. What do we do? How do we finally, and we've had a Royal Commission, what do we actually do at the sharp end to make it better?
I think that the sort of work that we do is more early intervention, crime prevention. Let's get in there early and let's take the trackers off the car. Let's put some cameras up. Let's safety plan with it to keep us safe. We can have men's behaviour programs. We can have legislation, justice, IVOs. This needs to be thought out outside the screw a bit more, and have some corporates like us get involved with the not-for-profits and government that can see it from a different lens. It needs a whole new rethink.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in. A few callers wanting to know how they contact your organisation. You have a website, obviously. What is it?
Yeah, it's www.protectivegroup.com.au.
Protective Group, one word, .com.au?
Yeah, .com.au.
Well, you're going to be busy still, aren't you? For a long time.
Unfortunately, yes, I suppose.
Okay, thank you both very much for coming in, for shocking me a bit. From Protective Group, and that's protectivegroup.com.au, Stephen Schultz and Stephen Wilson. For years, I've been urging you to support the Royal Melbourne Hospital Lottery, and this year there's even more reason. You could win the biggest prize they have ever offered. You could win the dream. You could live mortgage-free in East Brighton with a $5 million grand prize. Tickets are available now, so go to rmhhomelottery.com.au and help one of our biggest hospitals do an even better job. Permit 10522/22.